What was the reason you ended your last job? The store manager and assistant manager weren't trained to set seasonal properly, nor put the money into stuff in the computer the way we were supposed to. She had complained daily. I'd tell her to drag the district manager in and demand the training. She'd insist she didn't want him in the store, WTF? And continue complaining about not knowing how to XYZ. I finally walked out. Left my resignation letter on the desk and my keys in the safe. I couldn't take the negativity anymore. She's lost most of the original crew for that store as far as I know. And there were only 8 of us total. Toxic leader in a peer department. Used extortion, fear, and blackmail regularly. His team couldn't hold talent longer than a few months due to him. Leadership refused to address the issue. Rumors that he had dirt on the company, so he effectively got everything he wanted when it counted. I left when he went after my team and leadership allowed him to. Turns out it was the best decision of my professional life, because at the same time this was happening I was offered my dream job, making more money, working fewer hours, and over a year, and I can report no workplace drama here. My area manager tried to change my shift after I'd already been at work for 2 hours and drove an hour to get there. I got there at 6 a.m. He called and said I needed to leave and come back to work 10:06. I told him I'm not doing that. Then he decides to cop an attitude and get sassy and say, well, you can just go home and not come back, among other things. So I asked him who TF he thought he was talking to like that. Needless to say, HR and the district manager, who was a terrible person and has since been replaced, called me an hour later. I was glad to be out of there. I was canned because I was seriously underperforming. I'd had COVID, so I was dog-tired all the time. That was the truthful justification I gave for my underperformance, and they allowed me to claim unemployment. There was an element of severe demoralization there too, though. I felt bad, because my boss was excellent and my team were good, and my underperformance screwed them over. But we were repeatedly just absolutely hung out to dry by other departments and completely dunked on by clients, to an alarming and utterly unacceptable extent, and my brain just broke. I was canned because I was seriously underperforming. I'd had COVID, so I was dog-tired all the time. That was the truthful justification I gave for my underperformance, and they allowed me to claim unemployment. There was an element of severe demoralization there too, though. I felt bad, because my boss was excellent and my team were good, and my underperformance screwed them over. But we were repeatedly just absolutely hung out to dry by other departments and completely dunked on by clients, to an alarming and utterly unacceptable extent, and my brain just broke. Complete chaos in the IT department. The company had a super tight budget and everyone from bottom to top was stressed out because not enough personnel was hired to meet the goals of the C-suite. Basically, you get paid below market to do the work of 4 employees. And this wasn't a startup, it was a company that has been in business for decades. Ended up finding a role that paid double for less work. Bottom line, if you are overworked and underpaid, look for a new job ASAP. It can potentially take a long time, but it's always worth it. Everyone had an opinion, too many chiefs, orientation was all over the place, feedback was completely wrong because the person delivering the information trusted the wrong people, communication from upper management to my manager was literally non-existent, so you can hopefully imagine all the issues I had between getting time off, specifics affecting how the orientation was to proceed, total disregard for the value of each employee no matter what their role was. I was a truly enthusiastic employee and by the end I just felt crushed. They wanted me to stop reporting releases to the environment in order to reduce the number of environmental reports we had in order to be more appealing to prospective purchasers. Turned into a fun time of retaliation and destroying my mental health until I called it quits. Even got fired while on FMLA. Spoke with several lawyers, all said we have an open and shut case if we were anywhere other than where the company was located. All of them said a judge would just toss the case in favor of the company there. Gotta love the South. Really toxic workplace, but the last straw was when I had to miss a day in work over the weekend night because my dad was having surgery. And my manager accused me of lying? He pulled in HR as a power play as well. He was absolutely delusional because he was new to the position and things were already a shit show. I ended up having an anxiety attack because I just couldn't believe what was happening, on top of my parents' health issues. So I got short-term disability pay for a few months and then quit after a little. The owners wouldn't listen to me and my co-workers and preferred to be cheap asses. I found a better job under the radar and quit. Just because I felt petty, I logged into the place where we'd do paperwork, and in the notes I pasted a YouTube link of a video that started out innocent but then cut to a clip of a snake going into someone's ass. The owners saw it and they were mortified. They never figured out it was me. It's been 2 years since I last set foot at that job, and I don't ever plan on going back. I was unappreciated. My boss would only seem to critique us. Never any appreciation. He'd leave for a weekend vacation and come back complaining about something we didn't do. While we were spending the entire weekend doing something he asked to make sure it was done, and still helped customers, and one of the days was on the higher end for sales. I also worked there for 3 years and never got a raise. He also asked me to take on more responsibility, but never told me specifically how to do that. Within 6 months of joining, I got an on-site opportunity. Department head said he can't risk sending a female junior abroad all by herself. I let this slide. A month later, the on-site consultant requested for me to be present there because he wanted to come back, and I kinda knew my way around things. BU had paused for a meeting and this effing asshole came up with reasons to not let me go. He wanted to send his colleagues instead. I knew this was it. Sent my resignation the next day. The other esthetician constantly left the room. Products, brushes, etc. absolutely disgusting. All brushes and products should be sanitized and wiped down after every single client. She would also come and blast it off of whatever pills she decided to take that day. Police followed her once. Boss wouldn't fire her BC she didn't want to get audited again by the IRS since she committed tax fraud during COVID. Not losing my license over a trash can of a spy and incompetence got hired on. Oh yeah, we'll let you implement a bunch of changes to make the system more stable and work on the DBA side of things. In actuality, please make these reports for a washed up programmer we unwisely made into a VP. They'll give you pseudocode that doesn't resolve any data on our system, obey any form of logic, and they'll hire friends from church to be business analysts to muck up specs for major projects that literally do not make any sense. My last employer, of 32 years, had shrunk from 3,000 employees to 200. I'd earned above average reviews for many years, then my boss gave me a below average one. That was the writing on the wall for me. Things were getting worse and worse, shitty attitudes all around. I just got fed up, gave my 2 weeks notice. I told them for years that they'd miss me when I was gone. Well, I left, they started calling, asking me to come back. Sorry, I'm retired. Was being scheduled literally 13 hours a week. Most days I'd come in at 9:30 and leave at 11. Brought up to my service manager multiple times, hey, you only gave me 1 shift this week. Can't afford daycare with only 1 shift. He'd say he forgot and sometimes give me a pity shift. Went to the GM, she did nothing. I was tired of doing them the favor of coming into open cause they didn't want to and then not being given any serving shifts in return. Both my office mates were crying at their desks due to stress when I received a message from my boss that I was working too slow and was no longer allowed to wear headphones at my desk. That was the last straw. I took a break, ran it by my partner, and submitted my 2-week notice. They told me I could just finish out the day. Now I run my very own doggy daycare and couldn't be happier and less stressed. Don't put up with it, people. 40-hour job turned into a mandatory 60 hours. Also, every other department got Veterans Day off and paid for except for the one fucking veteran in the company. Just a shit company on so many levels. Though we had a department head, it seemed he wasn't really in charge. Random family members of the owner would come and give conflicting directions and priorities and would cause massive amounts of problems. Just simply a poor run company. I was a teacher. My vice principal yelled in my face in front of a student. A combination of other factors had built up over time and made me hate teaching, but that was the straw that broke my back at that place. After that, I walked down to the principal's office and told him I intended to resign. Right now, I'm in the process of changing careers, but I'm far happier than I was as a teacher. I'm glad I left when I did. I'm on the verge of quitting my current job as I'm tired of being told just do it. I work for a huge UK company and have 20 years of web content experience, so I know what I'm talking about. I'm tired of people from other departments, with zero web knowledge, asking for wacky things to be done on our e-commerce website, which I raise as being wrong, but being forced to do them anyway. I may as well be a fucking robot. I had a great boss, and when she got promoted up, I promised her that I would train her replacement and then retire early. It was really difficult training her replacement, because he was nowhere near as capable of handling a high-level, high-stress job as she was. I was never able to completely train him after 6 months, So one morning I called in sick and said tomorrow, I'm quitting my fucking job. So I did. WFH was driving me up a wall. I'm a bit of a homebody anyway, so when I went WFH and didn't alter the rest of my life, after a while, it got too isolating. When I realized that and evaluated what needed to change, I determined it was my job. Turns out I need to see people, even the general public, which I don't generally care for, in order to feel okay doing my own thing and fitting in friends a few times per month. I got seriously ill from surgical complications and 2 months into my medical leave, when I was still in the middle of very involved and costly treatment, the company yanked my health insurance out from under me. I had to quit so I could qualify for Medicaid because I have to have health insurance. I'm very sad about it because I loved the job and fought to keep it but didn't give a single fuck. I worked in special ed preschool. We were short-staffed and anytime we mentioned the dangers we were facing, the principal dismissed it. She even had the nerve to tell us that everyone's suffering. We had 24 children, 16 of them had special needs, and many of them were not potty trained yet, but we only had 2 adults. I was not being paid enough to deal with that, so I left for a better paying job. Workplace was toxic, everything was an emergency. Management was the epitome of too many cooks, forced daily 1-hour training, and a lot of the material was ableist. On top of all of that, they couldn't retain staff and decided a grueling, key job that was the heart of the company deserved a non-livable wage. I couldn't afford healthcare while working that job. It was not even close to worth the stress.